A police officer was in danger, but his canine partner was ready to fight. A routine patrol turns into a deadly ambush. Outnumbered and wounded, Officer Jack faces his worst nightmare until his canine partner, Rex, proves why loyalty can defy all odds. The night was heavy with silence, save for the distant howl of the wind as it swept through the empty streets. Dark clouds loomed overhead, promising a storm. Officer Jack Carter sat behind the wheel of his patrol car, his fingers wrapped around the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the deserted town. His canine partner, Rex, sat alert in the passenger seat, ears perked, golden brown eyes locked on the road ahead. Jack reached over, giving the German shepherd a firm pat on the head. "Just another night, huh, buddy?" he murmured. Rex huffed softly, sent response as if agreeing. For years they had been partners, watching each other's backs, trusting each other with their lives. Jack knew that no matter what the night brought, Rex would be right there beside him. Lately the town had been restless. A string of armed robberies had left the people shaken, their trust in safety eroding with each new crime. Jack felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders, but he had faced worse before. Still, something about tonight felt different. A quiet eeriness clung to the air, a sense of unease settling in his chest. He glanced at Rex, who remained watchful, his muscles slightly tense. The dog could sense it too. Jack exhaled slowly. "We'll get them, Rex, one way or another." The German shepherd's tail flicked once in response, his steady presence offering comfort in the uncertainty of the night. The radio crackled to life, shattering the silence inside the patrol car. "Unit 24, we have a report of an armed suspect near the old warehouse on 5th. Possible connection to the robbery cases. Proceed with caution." Jack's pulse quickened. This could be it, the break they'd been waiting for. He turned the wheel, guiding the car through the darkened streets toward the industrial district. "Hang tight, boy," he said, the familiar rush of adrenaline kicking in. This might get rough. Rex let out a quiet, eager whine. He was always ready. The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking structure standing against the stormy sky. Jack parked the car, stepping out cautiously, his hand resting on his holster. Rex moved beside him, his ears twitching, nose testing the air. Something felt off. The warehouse was too quiet, too still. Jack pushed forward, stepping into the dimly lit space. The second he did, the door behind him slammed shut with a deafening bang. His hand shot to his gun, but before he could draw it, figures emerged from the darkness. A blur of movement, then pain. A hard blow knocked the gun from his grip. Jack staggered, his breath rushing from his lungs as masked attackers swarmed him. One of them sneered. "Did you really think you'd walk out of here alive, Carter?" Jack's mind raced. This wasn't just a suspect hiding out. This was a setup. Men moved fast, their attack brutal. He fought back, but they outnumbered him. From the shadows, Rex watched, his body taut with tension. He had seen enough. His partner was in danger. His ears flattened, his eyes darkened with intent. A deep growl rumbled from his throat, low and threatening. He wasn't just a police dog. He was Jack's protector, and he was ready to fight. Jack, pinned to the ground, managed to meet Rex's gaze. Despite the chaos, he felt no fear, because he knew what was coming next. "Rex," he breathed, voice barely above a whisper. "Get 'em." The moment the words left his lips, Rex sprang into action. A fierce snarl ripped through the warehouse as Rex lunged at the nearest attacker, his powerful jaws locking onto the man's arm. The thug screamed, trying to shake the dog off, but Rex held firm. Jack seized the distraction, driving his elbow into another attacker's ribs. Pain shot through his body, but he ignored it. He had one chance to turn the tide, and he wasn't about to waste it. Rex tore through the room like a shadowed fury, his training kicking in with deadly precision. One by one, the men fell, some scrambling to escape, others trying and failing to fight back. But they had underestimated one thing. A police dog wasn't just a tool. He was a warrior, a protector, a partner. And tonight, Rex would prove it. Jack's breath came in ragged gasps as he struggled against the attackers, their grip tightening around his arms. He lashed out, but they were too many, too strong. A boot slammed into his ribs, knocking the wind from his lungs. Pain shot through his side, but he clenched his jaw, refusing to give them the satisfaction of hearing him groan. A man stepped forward, his face partially illuminated by the dim warehouse lights. A cruel smile twisted his lips. "You don't recognize me, do you, Officer Carter?" he sneered. Jack's vision swam, but he forced himself to focus. Then it hit him. The scar across the man's cheek. The deep-set eyes filled with hatred. "Rico," Jack breathed. Rico's grin widened. "Glad you remember. You put me away years ago. Thought I'd rot in prison forever, huh? But now it's my turn to return the favor." Jack's mind raced. He was bleeding, disoriented, but he couldn't afford to show weakness. He knew Rex was still out there, hidden in the shadows, watching, waiting. "Stay sharp, boy. I need you now more than ever." Rico leaned in close, his breath hot against Jack's face. "No one's coming to save you, cop. You're going to pay for what you did." Jack swallowed the bile rising in his throat. He had faced death before, but this time he wasn't alone. Rex was out there, his partner, his only hope. Rex crouched, low behind a stack of wooden crates, ears pinned back, muscles coiled. His sharp eyes never left Jack. He could smell the blood, sense the danger. He had been trained for moments like this. The gang was distracted, laughing, taunting Jack. They had no idea that a silent predator lurked nearby, ready to strike. Rex's tail twitched. He needed a signal, just one word from Jack, one glance. Jack met Rex's eyes, barely tilting his head. That was all Rex needed. With a ferocious snarl, Rex shot out of the shadows like a bullet. The nearest thug barely had time to react before Rex's powerful jaws clamped down on his arm. The man let out a piercing scream, thrashing wildly. Jack used the distraction to twist free, throwing a solid punch to another attacker's jaw. The warehouse erupted into chaos. More gang members swarmed in, their shouts filling the air. Jack ducked a swinging pipe, countering with a swift elbow to the ribs of his attacker. But he was slowing down. His injuries were catching up to him. Then cold metal pressed against his temple. "This is over," Rico hissed, pressing the gun deeper against Jack's skull. For a split second, silence hung in the air. Rex saw the gun. His partner was seconds from death. Without hesitation, he lunged, jaws locking onto Rico's arm. Rico screamed, his finger jerking on the trigger. The shot rang out, missing Jack by inches. Jack seized the moment, elbowing Rico hard, knocking the gun from his hand. Blood dripped from Rex's mouth, but he didn't let go. He had one mission: protect Jack at all costs. Jack fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Fists, elbows, knees, he threw everything he had. Rex tore through the remaining gang members with military precision. The criminals had underestimated them. They weren't just fighting a cop and a dog. They were fighting a team, bound by loyalty, by survival. "Enough!" Rico shouted, staggering back. He whistled sharply. The remaining gang members scrambled for the exit. Jack and Rex stood in the center of the warehouse, bloodied but unbroken. The wail of sirens grew closer. The fight was over, but the war wasn't. Jack knelt, gripping Rex's fur. "You saved my life, partner." Rex let out a low, exhausted whine and licked Jack's cheek. They had fought through hell together, and they would do it again, because that's what partners do. The warehouse fell into a dead silence. The gang leader, a tall, scarred man with cold, calculating eyes, lifted his gun and aimed it directly at Rex, his lips curled into a wicked grin. "The dog dies first," he sneered, tightening his finger on the trigger. Rex stood firm, his deep growl vibrating through the air, his muscles coiled, ready to strike. But Jack knew he couldn't. Let it happen. He had fought side by side with Rex for years, and he wouldn't let this be the end. Without thinking, Jack threw himself in front of his loyal partner. A deafening gunshot shattered the silence. Pain ripped through his shoulder as he staggered back, his hand instinctively pressing against the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers, hot and sticky. Rex whined, his eyes darting between Jack and the enemy. Jack's breathing was ragged, but he forced a reassuring smile. "I'm okay, buddy. Stay with me." But Rex didn't need words. His instincts had already taken over. A low, guttural snarl rumbled from Rex's chest, his sharp teeth glistening under the dim light. He launched himself forward with lethal precision, his powerful jaws clamping down on the nearest attacker's arm. The man screamed, trying desperately to shake him off. Rex didn't let go. With lightning-fast movements, he spun, knocking another man to the ground with his sheer force. His training kicked in, every muscle moving with purpose. He was no longer just a dog, he was a warrior, a protector. Gunshots rang out, the gang was in chaos, their formation breaking apart. Some fired wildly, but Rex was too fast. He weaved through the shadows, striking with perfect accuracy. A man swung a crowbar, aiming for Rex's head. Jack's heart lurched, but Rex ducked just in time, his jaws clamping onto the weapon instead. He yanked it away, sending the attacker stumbling back in fear. The gang leader cursed, his confidence fading as he saw his men fall one by one. Jack gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. He couldn't let Rex fight alone. His eyes darted around the room, spotting a fallen weapon near the crates. Summoning every ounce of strength, he lunged for it, his fingers wrapping around the cold steel. He rolled onto his back, aimed and fired. A bullet struck the ground near the gang leader's feet, forcing him to stumble. Jack pulled himself up, his voice hoarse. "You're not walking out of here." Rex returned to Jack's side, his fur bristling with unwavering determination. Together they stood their ground, backs against each other, facing the remaining enemies. One of the men made a final desperate charge toward Jack, but before he could reach him, Rex intercepted, his powerful body slamming into the attacker with bone-crushing force. Jack felt a rush of pride. No matter what, Rex would never leave his side. The distant sound of sirens pierced the air. The gang members exchanged panicked glances. Their advantage was slipping away. The leader snarled, stepping back. "We need to get out of here, now!" But Rex wasn't about to let them go. He chased after one of the fleeing men, clamping down on his leg and dragging him to the ground. Jack took aim at the gang leader. "It's over." The man hesitated, his grip on the gun faltering. And then the warehouse doors burst open. Floodlights filled the room as officers stormed in, weapons drawn. Within seconds, the gang members were subdued, cuffed, and forced to the ground. The fight was over. Jack staggered, his vision blurring. From the blood loss, strong hands caught him before he fell. "Easy, Carter. We got you," a fellow officer said, steadying him. Jack turned his head, searching for Rex. His partner was there, standing tall, panting but unharmed. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment everything was understood. They had won. Together. Jack knelt, despite the pain, and placed a hand on Rex's head. "We did it, partner." Rex licked his face, his tail wagging just slightly. It was their way of saying what words never could. As the officers led the criminals away, Jack and Rex stood in the center of the warehouse, bloodied, exhausted, but undefeated. Because in the end, their bond had proven stronger than any enemy they would ever face. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the cold pavement as the last of the criminals were shoved into the back of squad cars. Their reign of terror was finally over. Officers moved swiftly, securing the area, but all Jack could hear was the pounding of his own heartbeat. The pain in his shoulder burned like fire, but his focus remained on one thing: Rex. His loyal partner stood by his side, panting, his fur matted with dirt and sweat from the fight. "We got them," Jack muttered, his voice weak. His knees buckled and the world around him blurred. "Officer down, we need a medic here now," someone shouted. Strong arms caught Jack before he hit the ground, but the last thing he saw before darkness consumed him was Rex barking frantically, refusing to let anyone near his partner. The sterile scent of the hospital filled the air. Machines beeped rhythmically as Jack lay unconscious, an IV drip hooked to his arm. Outside the room, Rex sat rigidly, his ears flicking at every sound. "He won't move," an officer whispered. "Hasn't left that spot since they brought Carter in." Nurses tried to coax the K9 away, but he growled softly in response. His message clear: He wasn't going anywhere. His partner was inside and he would wait for him. Minutes turned into hours, and still Rex remained. A sharp pain jolted Jack awake. His head was heavy, his vision hazy. Blinking against the bright overhead lights, he slowly turned his head, his heart skipping a beat at the sight of a familiar shape curled up near the door. "Rex," he rasped, his throat dry. The K9's ears perked, and in an instant he was at Jack's side, his tail wagging slightly, eyes filled with unspoken relief. Jack exhaled, reaching out to stroke Rex's head despite the soreness in his arm. "We made it, buddy." The weight of everything they had been through settled on him. He had come so close to death, but Rex had saved his life. The news spread like wildfire. Within days, headlines praised the bravery of Officer Jack Carter and his K9 partner, Rex. "Hero K9 saves officer in deadly showdown," one article read. Jack had never been one for attention, but he couldn't ignore the stream of visitors. Fellow officers, the police chief, even the mayor came by to personally thank them. Cameras flashed as reporters asked for interviews. But Jack knew the real hero was the one sitting faithfully by his bedside, tail wagging whenever someone mentioned his name. One evening, after the noise of the day had quieted, Jack sat up in bed, watching Rex, who lay on the floor beside him. "You knew, didn't you?" Jack murmured. "You knew I needed you before I even did." Rex lifted his head, his dark eyes filled with understanding. No words were needed. Everything they had been through had only strengthened the bond they already shared. As Jack recovered, he often thought about the night in the warehouse. How close they had come to losing it all. How Rex had fought with everything he had, not as a K9 officer following commands, but as a true friend protecting his partner. "You're more than just a partner, you know that?" Jack said one morning, rubbing behind Rex's ears. "You're family?" Rex licked Jack's hand, his tail thumping softly against the hospital sheets. It was his way of saying he already knew. Weeks passed. Jack regained his strength, the bullet wound healing with time. The day he was finally cleared for duty, Rex practically bounced with excitement, his energy infectious. "Ready to get back out there?" Jack asked, tightening his utility belt. Rex barked in response, his tail wagging furiously. Jack chuckled. "Yeah, me too." Together, they stepped back into the world, stronger than ever. The night air was crisp as Jack and Rex patrolled the streets once more. The town was safer now, thanks to them. Jack reached down, giving Rex a firm pat on the head. "Let's go, partner." With a wag of his tail, Rex trotted beside him, ready for whatever came next. Because no matter the challenge, no matter the danger, they would always face it together.